Hey everyone, welcome back to Coding Artist. Today we are building something super fun, an interactive story generator. All you need to do is type a name, place, object and action, and with just a click, a unique story comes up to life instantly. It's a great beginner friendly JavaScript project that shows how to collect user input, use arrays, and generate random outputs. So grab your keyboard and let's dive into the code. Let's walk through the HTML structure of our interactive story generator step by step. We start inside the body tag where all the visible content of our web page lives. First, we have a div with class container. This acts as the main wrapper for everything on the page. It helps us style and center the content later with CSS. Inside this container, we have an h1 heading that says interactive story generator. This serves as a title at the top of our app. Next comes a div with class wrapper. This wraps all our input fields and lets us organize them in a grid layout. Inside the wrapper, we have 4 separate input fields. Each block contains a label, an input element. The first one asks for a name, the second asks for a place, the third asks for an object, and the fourth one asks for an action. Each of the input field has a corresponding ID like name, place, object and action. These IDs are important. We'll use them in JavaScript later to grab the user input. The placeholder attribute gives a user a hint about what to type, and the required attribute makes sure they don't skip any field. After the input fields, we have a button with ID generate story. When this button is clicked, it triggers a JavaScript to generate and display a random story. Finally, we have an empty div with the ID story and class story. This is where the generated story will appear after the user fills in the form and clicks the button. That wraps up our HTML. It's clean, semantic, and structured. With our CSS and Let's now take a look at the CSS and see how we styled our interactive story generator. We start by setting up a clean and modern font across the whole page using font family Poppins sans serif. The body also gets a full height using height 100 VH and a vibrant gradient color that moves diagonally. Moving on to the container, this is the main white card in the center. We set its width to be responsive using min 400px 90 VW and then use position absolute along with top 50% and left 50% and transform translate -50% to center it perfectly on the screen. We give it some padding for spacing, a soft border radius for rounded corners and a subtle box shadow to make it stand out. Next, we have the wrapper class. This wraps all the input fields. We use display grid and grid template columns 1FR 1FR to arrange the input into two equal columns with a 15px gap. Each input is styled to be user friendly. We give it a decent font size, padding, slide border and round corners. The label elements are bold and spaced from the inputs for better readability. The button is styled to match the purple theme using background color. White text, no background and a big border radius to give it a smooth peel-like look. We also add a hover effect with dark purple to make it interactive. Finally, the story div is hidden by default using display none. Once the story is generated, we make it visible. It has a purple background with padding and rounded corners to clearly separate it from the rest of the content. That's the complete styling. Simple, colorful, clean, and great for beginners to practice layout, responsiveness, and visual design. Let's begin the JavaScript by first adding an event listener to the generate story button. We are using getElementById to target the button by its ID, generate story. Then we attach a clicked event. Inside the function, we grab the values from all the 4 input fields: name, place, object and action, and we use trim to remove the extra spaces. To check if our input fields are being captured correctly, let's temporarily log them in the console. I'll type console.log name, place, object, action. Now when we type something in the input field and click generate story button, we'll see the values printed in the browser console. Before generating the story, we'll add a simple check to make sure all the fields are filled. If any of the input fields are empty, we show an alert. Please fill all the fields. And then we stop the function using return. Now let's create a list of story template using an array called stories. Each template is a short paragraph that includes placeholders like $name, $place, $height and $action, which will be replaced by the user inputs. Then we pick one randomly using the math.random, multiplied it by the array's length and wrap it with math.floor to round it down. The result is stored in a variable called random story. We have got our story generated. In the next step, we will display it nicely on the screen. Finally, we want to display a randomly generated story inside the page. So we select the div with the ID story using getElementById. Then we set its inner text to random story variable, which contains the story we created. Since the story div is initially hidden with display none, we change its style to display block so it becomes visible to the user. This way, every time the user clicks generate story, a new story appears below the page. And that's it. Our interactive story generator is now ready. As you can see, just by entering a few words, we get a brand new story every time we click the button. It's simple, creative, and a great way to practice working with forms, user input, and basic DOM menu manipulations in JavaScript. If you found this helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your fellow coders. I'll be back with more fun projects. Until then, keep coding and stay creative.